The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Happiness Jungle TV show. I am your guest host, CamiBaker.com, and I am excited about our guest because every time I go out and network and mingle and mix and meet people, I always find interesting people, and it's always a blessing when I find one that's worthy of being on the show. So I asked Rob to come on, Rob Kanzer. Rob, tell our viewers a little something about yourself.
A little something.
A little something.
I grew up in Weston, Massachusetts. I was the oldest of three boys. My father was an award-winning advertising executive, a little bit of a workaholic. My mom, also a very bright person, unfortunately had a mental illness. And while I was living in this paradise where my three best friends all had tennis courts, one had a swimming pool, one had a horse, one had a church organ in the basement that his engineer father built and played like a maestro. All was not well in paradise because of my mother's illness. So I was raised kind of as a surrogate parent, making sure that my two younger brothers were getting along, because if they didn't get along, I was afraid that might mean mom might have to go away for a rest.
Oh.
But that was always an undercurrent. You know, in the 60s, when I was growing up and coming of age, we didn't necessarily have open conversation about personal conversation, mental illness, drug addiction, suicide. Fortunately, now it's easier for people to have open conversations. So I think I was shaped by my father's command of the English language and being an advertising executive, learned a lot from him about building rapport with people. And from my mom, I learned it's important to take care of people. And that was the beginning stages of my life.
Well, to your father's credit, you are good at communication, hence why you're here.
Yay.
Because when we met, we had just instant rapport, just nice conversation, just friendly, easy flow. And I find that that is so sorely missing. So sorely missing. I meet hundreds of people a month in what I do. And there's just so many people that have a hard, even in online dating that I talk about a lot, the people have such a hard time creating conversation. So I want to applaud you for your ability to create that communication. Talk to us a little bit about how, so your mother's challenges, is that what led you into the field you're in today?
I think unconsciously. I think my mother's influence was unconscious and my father's influence was very conscious. He would pull me aside from time to time and he would say, Rob, you know, your enthusiasm might be interpreted differently than how you mean it. It's great to have enthusiasm. It's wonderful to have good energy, but it's equally important to pause and check in with the other person. You and I, we love talking. We love being in front of the camera. I love being on stage as a life and business coach. It's what we do for a living. But it's very important in my practice for the last 37 years when I'm coaching people around communication is to do two things. Number one, to relax into your own power. You don't have to be exactly like Cami or exactly like Rob, but you need to be yourself. And I know that sounds like a cliche, be yourself, be yourself. What does that mean? I think it means relax into your own power. You know, Mahatma Gandhi, who changed the course of Western civilization, was not a loud, angry, vociferous person. He spoke in a very quiet way, but he knew who he was, what he stood for, and he enrolled other people out of that conscious awareness of his mission. So I like to think we all have gifts. You have a gift, I have a gift. whatever the gift is, listen to the gift and go from there. If you notice other people have certain skills you'd like to have, sure, imitate them, read their book, be on their show. I highly recommend that. But I think at the end of the day, it's just important to be who you are and let that light shine.
Well, I love what you said about pause, because I know for myself as a speaker, spoken hundreds of times where I was just verbally vomiting and just a fire hose of information. And don't forget this, and write that down. Oh, and I got this other note, and don't forget this. And I can see, I can physically see the information just winging by like arrows over people's heads, you know. But the beauty of it is being conscious, being consciously aware, you know, and it took some years and some maturing to actually become consciously aware of that, but learning to slow down so that people can take the information in. And as you were saying, you know, about be yourself, I know for me, when I talk about personality styles, you know, I'm clearly what they would call a driver, depending on what genre you study. And some people are amiable and they're quiet and they're naturally that way. And to your point, don't try to be Cami or Rob or anybody else. Be yourself and honor who it is that you are and what it is that you bring to the table. Because, for example, in business and in networking or communicating, sometimes the quiet person is way better networker, way better communicator, because we have two of these and one of these. And when we have two of these to one of these, there's a reason for that, and we can use that. So
I think you're absolutely right. And one of the skills of listening has to answer this question: what am I listening for? A lot of us think I'm listening for the information. You know, Cami and Rob are giving me good, you know, and I better write them down. Yes, it's important in communication to hear the content of what somebody's saying. But when we pause for listening, what I pause and listen for are two things. I'm listening for, what do I think the person I'm talking to or an audience might be feeling? Am I speaking in such a way that they might be lost or bored? It's important for me not to panic at that point. So, oh no, I'm being boring or I'm talking too much. Rather to say, well, if they're bored, why don't we take a break and ask them some questions? If, on the other hand, I'm tuned into somebody and their eyes are wide and they're nodding their head and they're giving me the thumbs up like you are right now, it's a green light that says, it's okay, keep that energy going. Sure, talk for another 30 seconds, but be willing at any moment to shift. So those are the feelings. The needs are, people want to feel included. A lot of people, when they come to Toastmasters, for example, I'm the president of Lexington Toastmasters, an international organization. I'm sure you've heard of it. Maybe you've even been to Toastmasters. It's an opportunity for the community to support people at any skill level.
any level.
Any level at all. So from Toastmasters and from being a coach for 37 years, I've noticed two things about what people need. They need to feel included, like you and I need to feel like, okay, we're in the conversation together, but we also independently need to let our own light shine. I want to tell you about my story, and then you want to tell about your story.
I love how you break that down. And when you say included, acknowledgement. People want to be acknowledged.
That's right.
They want to feel acknowledged. We used to say in network marketing, babies cry for it, men die for it. Acknowledgement.
Yes. Love, inclusion.
Yeah.
And everybody processes that differently. You talked about the quiet person. I tend to be a louder person, very demonstrative with my hands, and I like hugs. But that's just one way of processing information. It's important for me to pause, like I did before the camera started rolling today, to say, I love a hug, but a handshake is okay, but also just acknowledging a person from a distance is okay as well. It's more important for me to tune into how you receive me than for me to be so excited that I kind of ride roughshod over your sensibilities.
Well, and I love that you give that out, that there's a hug, a handshake, or just an acknowledgement, Because especially today with the Me Too movement and
Oh
everything,
boy.
at the beginning of my talks, for the longest time, I would have people either, here was your choice, hey, it's nice to meet you, or, oh my God, it's so nice to finally meet you, and go give somebody a hug. And,
Yes.
but the energy that you just had and how you laughed, that was my purpose, was to get people excited, because once I did something like that, I have to say, okay, let's sit down, because
Yes.
once people got excited, they were hugging and they were touching. And I would say, we need air, we need water, we need food, and we need communication. We need to touch, we need to feel like you're talking about. But now with the Me Too movement, you don't want to step your bounds and all that kind of stuff. Now I don't have people hug anymore, because somebody mentioned to me, well, if you have the wrong person in that situation and they feel like their boundaries were crossed,
Yeah.
then that could be a problem. So you do have to be careful.
Absolutely. I think you're talking about love and respect, something that we're all hungry for. Sometimes people like you and I, we get really excited, we get really loud, but for us to have an internal monitor, sometimes when I'm a little out of sorts, I'm confused about what I'm going to say, or I'm a little too excited, I literally take my hand and I touch my own, and I try not to make a big deal of it. I do it kind of self-consciously, or I should say, without the conscious awareness of the other person is what I mean to say, and just kind of give myself a little soothing, like reminds me to breathe, right? And the thing that makes people laugh, like you just giggled a little bit, and I laughed earlier when you were giving your wide hug example, is we appreciate when people give acknowledgement to the private things that we're afraid of. So that laughter, it's kind of a relief, like, ain't that the truth? Oh my gosh, that's so true. It's kind of like a call and response, almost like we're in church now. Ain't that true? That's
Preach
right.
Preach it.
Preach it. Or as I like to say, preach, reach, and teach.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got to reach people, to teach them, and then when they're with you, you can preach to them. But if you're not reaching them and you have no content to offer, your preaching is just like that clanging of a bell. It's just a lot of noise.
Another way that I've heard that has been, when you open your heart, then you open your head, then you can open your hands. So in other words, I learned just a couple of years ago to be very vulnerable and share my authenticity about my alcoholism from the stage. And so to your point, saying things that people are thinking on the inside, when I share about that moment when I picked my daughter up and I smelled my alcohol breath in her face, and had that moment of clarity, and realized that if anything was going to be fixed, it was me, and I had to fix it. And people really relate to that. And I have people talk to me all the time about whether they have an alcohol problem or whether they're just like, I really appreciate your authenticity. I was taught that, you know how they say, we don't care how much you know until we know that you care. Well, that's
Yes.
another version of being able to show my heart, because until they feel the vulnerability, they're not ready to open and listen and hear the expertise, etc. So heart, head, and then hands. And the hands could be that they're ready to receive the information, that they're ready to give you a credit card, that they're ready to join hands, like whatever that means. Now there's an exchange, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking of two things when you were speaking. One that I related to, and thank you for just being open about your alcoholism. And that was such a poignant moment. Your own breath in the presence of your daughter, your child, and just hitting you. You knew that was your moment. Like, I've got to stop this, figure out, and take responsibility. And people could relate to it because it was vulnerable. And people thank me, not that I'm looking for thanks, when I say my mother had a mental illness, she didn't survive, she committed suicide. That opens up conversation about suicide. Some people hold on to these things for years. And I'm not saying I'm the key or I'm the answer, but people have said, I've been unable to talk about that until you made yourself vulnerable first.
Well, and when you mentioned that about your mother in the very beginning, one of my clients now, because I do a lot with cause marketing campaigns. When a business person, entrepreneur, sales force, when they want to not be salesy and they want to just meet hundreds or thousands of their perfect client, let's leave our salesperson at home by talking about a cause that we're passionate about. So when you can talk about the cause you're passionate about to market yourself and your business and have a whole campaign around it, well, now you raise awareness, you raise funds, your business increases, you meet a lot of people, you have that like-mindedness. So one of my clients, her daughter was diagnosed with mental illness. And so that's her cause. And so we're going to be doing this big masquerade in the Worcester area in the fall. And the proceeds are going to be going to, we haven't picked the right organization yet, but about mental illness. And there's such a movement about being open and talking about that and sharing. To your point, so many people, it was a taboo or, you know, had a stigma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for making that point, because earlier you were talking about the credit card, and I was about to say, yes, building rapport builds friendship. It brings men and women together if they want to have a romantic relationship, or women and women and men, whatever the case may be. There is common energy, let's say, between building rapport and then making the sale, or building rapport and then going on the date. I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, the feeling of being heard and understood. We're all hungry to be heard and understood, loved and accepted. What do we do all day long? What did I do on the ride over here? I'm starting to hurry. What am I going to say to Cami? And how am I going to come across? And it's like, I've been doing this for 37 years. It doesn't go away. The chatterbox doesn't go away. All we can do is modify it and inhibit it. Yoga teaches that. You know, Krishnamurti, one of the great yogic teachers of the past, used to talk about what we now call the little voice. If I can just manage my little voice and just say, thank you, little voice. I know you just want me to have a good time and come across really well on Cami's show. And then just inhale and exhale, almost as if I'm loving a screaming child. I would never hit my child. I might get irritated with my child for being cranky, but I would do my best to be compassionate and patient. I'm still trying to learn how to master that, but I've improved over the years, and I think it's a daily discipline.
One of my mentors back in the day called it the drunk monkey.
Yeah.
You know, imagine if you put a monkey that was drunk in a room and it just wreaked havoc.
Right.
That's what it feels like a lot of the times for me in my head. Just a drunk monkey, just crazy going.
Sometimes my buddies and I, if we're stuck and we recognize drunk monkey, and they're like, "How you doing?" And this is common parlance. Everybody uses this phrase. "How you doing?" I don't know. I'm kind of in my head. And it's a way of saying, Cami, I know we're sitting at the table. I know we're going to have a TV show, but these things are bothering me and kind of taking me out of the game. And I find it's almost counterintuitive, because I don't want to say anything's wrong with me, because then I look bad, which makes things worse. But if I tell the truth and I say, honestly, I just lost my train of thought, or honestly, I'm distracted, or I'm in my head, it gives that open possibility. They're like, okay, I can relate to that, Rob. And I realize my fears of how you might judge me or how the audience might judge me kind of dissipates. It might come back later. The drunk monkey might come back in a minute or in a day, say, well, what about this and what about that? And I'm like, thank you, drunk monkey. I know you're just trying to help.
You know, as you say that, it makes me think of why it is that we like to be with our own tribe, why we like to be with those like-minded people. Because I know for me, you know, just yesterday I spent time with my daughter, that same little 2-year-old that I was holding when I smelled the alcohol. You know, she's now 20. And God bless her, she's got her own challenges. And, you know, what I would have thought would have kept her from drinking as she got older has actually become a crutch for her now. And so as we're talking about it, we have a hard time relating, because she's in that world of drinking and misery and gloom and depression and sadness and all that. And so as you're talking about the person being able to feel you, like we're so like-minded that we can respect that. Oh, okay, I feel your vulnerability. I feel where you're coming from. I can just relate to you better than someone who's not willing to be vulnerable. and someone who's not willing to be honest and say, hey, listen, I'm in my head right now. I just need a minute. Because that's something that she wouldn't be able to say.
So I'm guessing for you, you were surprised in all of your own journey, thinking you were providing for your daughter a pathway to avoid the alcohol, and now discovering that she's stuck in the alcohol in her own representation of what that means. I just imagine that that could be both frustrating and maybe some hurt feelings and some sadness. At the same time, I'm also guessing you've matured to the point of coming to accept you can only do what you can do. Of course, your mom, of course, you're always going to be thinking of your daughter. Are you able to get that balance, or are there some days where it's just like racking your mind and you kind of lose that equilibrium of just that overwhelm?
I actually feel like it's from different teachings that I've subscribed to over the years, that we are all here on our own journey, and that even though she came through me in the literal sense,
Yes.
I've done my part. I did the best that I could, and she's on her own journey. She's going to make her own choices. And even though sometimes I think, well, I wish I could have or should have, or, ultimately I know that she's here to get her own lessons just like I am.
It's funny that you should say that, because my own son, Abram, born in '82, so he's going to be 37 in June. He's a smashing success. You mentioned Salesforce before. He's one of the top executive salespeople in New York City. Just knocks it out of the park. Even to this day, I think back on when he was a baby, when he was a little child, and when his mother and I didn't get along, and then there was a long distance between us where he was on one coast and I was on another coast. I would toss and turn, I'm not a good father, I didn't do a good job. And even today, I shudder at some things that I did. Intellectually, I know it's like, he's probably going to take care of me. He's got it so together. He's got friends all over the world. He's making bank. He's got a new daughter, my granddaughter Avery, who's almost one. He's just knocking it out of the park. And yet my monkey mind will not rest. It will remind me, well, remember when you did this and when you did that. And I know as this shudder comes over me, it's going to last between 2 seconds and 2 minutes. And it's just like turbulence on the plane. It's like, yeah, it feels like the plane's going down, but I've been on planes before, and probably we're going to come in for a safe landing. And, thank God I've never gone down on a plane. And thank God I've never gone down in a mental breakdown. But those turbulent moments come. And after a while, I start to notice that, oh, this is turbulence.
So I'm fascinated to find out, what is it that you do for your clients? Like, what does someone find you? We're at 4 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
That flew by.
Yeah. So.
Whoa! Talking about flying and turbulence.
So talk about your clients. Who are they?
For 37 years, I've been helping people from all walks of life. My great coach, Dottie Waters, told me, Rob, you want to change the world. It's great that you're teaching counselors and empathetic people like yourself how to build empathy skills. That's wonderful. But if you really want to change the world, you need to go into business, into the corporations, because that's where change is happening. Work with the rich and powerful people. I'm like, rich and powerful people? No, they're bad. And she said, do you want to change the world or not?
And do you want to eat?
Right. And by the way, you've got that baby on the way. His name is Abram. You got to take care of him. So my clients are generally interested in owning their own power. They might not use that phrase. It might be something that starts small, like, can you look at my resume? Or can you rehearse my job interview? Or I've already made the team. I'm the captain of the team. I'm the director of research and development in this $9 billion division. Can you teach my entire team what you've taught me? And those are my ideal clients, people that kind of get that I'm not there to judge. I am there to coach. I'm going to hold them to their commitments. If they said they wanted to be happy, we are on a path for happiness. If they said they wanted to make more money, we're on that. Whatever the path is, not my path.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there to support them on their path.
Nice. Keep
Yeah.
talking. I'm just looking at the clock.
Well, robkanzer.com. That's how to get a hold of me.
So give me an example. Give me a
sure.
quick story.
Quick story. Okay. I'm giving a presentation at the Nurse Practitioners Association for Continuing Education. I'm sent down to Cape Cod. I'm in a room of professional, it's mostly women, nurse practitioners. And it's funny that the camera is right over there because the course was how to not get speaking jitters in front of the camera. That was the course. It was a 3-hour course. And afterwards, Diane Larson, who later became the CEO of Minerva Medical Communications, one of the most expert witnesses on child abuse and human trafficking in the state of Florida, said, I want to be calm in front of the camera. I want to be able to give sermons at church. And I want to get out of a particular business arrangement that's kind of sticky. And I want to run my own business with Pfizer and help the nurse practitioners and physician's assistants because they write more prescriptions than doctors do. And I thought, this is a smart person, and she's asking me to help. Well, fast forward, we've been working together for 15 years on not just those small projects that she started, because every time I helped her become successful in one project, she said, well, now I have another, and now I have another. And actually, will you come with me on some of these gigs, speaking to doctors and how to help them be more present and powerful? And by the way, would you also help me with my own family? So that's a dream client, somebody who gets the small hit. They start to take what I give them and it grows, and then they start to see some principles of coaching and how it applies. That's a dream client for me, somebody that's intelligent, bright, they know they want to improve, but they also want to be loving and kind to themselves. Rob Kanzer is the man for the job.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice ending to the show, Rob. It's been my pleasure to have you on. 27 minutes goes by very quickly, doesn't it?
So fast.
So fast. So anyone who is wanting to get in touch with Rob, I highly recommend it. He's a great guy, and I feel so connected. I feel so close to you as we sit here. Just great communication. Thank you so much.
Tammy, thank you so much. And is it appropriate to give the contact information, or it just shows up on the...
Go ahead. Give it out.
It's Rob Kanzer. That's ROBKANZER. Rob Kanzer. And my phone number is 617-491-8939. And if you forget my name, my second website is getalifeandbusinesscoach.com.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.